Hey there, thanks for joining me. This is Laura Lynn with Keep Inking Up. I'm an independent demonstrator for Stampin' Up! In San Antonio, Texas. And today I was making a stack of Christmas gift tags, so I thought that I would share a couple of tips about mass production. And we're going to use this tag as an example. Now you can use these tips for any kind of project. It's not limited to Christmas tags. It just happens to be the project that I'm working on at the moment. So I'm going to set that aside. The first tip that I want to share is to do things in batches. So what I've done quite a bit of work ahead of time because I'm doing a stack of these. I've already cut out a stack of our tags out of our basic white cardstock. So this is using the tailor-made tags, the largest one of the fancy top. So I have a stack of those, and I also cut out the designer series paper that's going to go on. So I have the basic white on the back where I have the two in the front, and then I have the designer series paper on the front. So I've got a stack of the designer series paper, I've got a stack of my basic white, I've also got a stack of the ornaments for the sentiment, so I've got a stack of those. I also have a bunch of the reinforcers to go on the front of the tag as well as the twine. I have everything cut out. And having everything cut out at once so you can just spend time doing each one in one step, it means you don't have to think so much. You just say, okay, I'm going to cut out a bunch of ornaments. I'm going to cut out a bunch of tags. Whatever you're doing, and you can do, it's kind of like mindless work that you can do kind of watching TV or something like that. So you can have everything just all ready to go whenever you're ready to assemble. Now, the biggest advantage of, or the biggest tip that I have for doing mass production is using a Stamparatus. I love my Stamparatus. If you follow me at all, you know I've done lots of videos on this product, and I just think this tool is the best. And again, I've done a little bit of work ahead of time. You can see that I have my sentiment already mounted on the clear plate that comes with the Stamparatus. And I've also created a template. Now how I did this, let me bring in the bundle I'm using. The sentiment is from the Frosted Gingerbread stamp set, which is a photopolymer stamp set, and the ornament cutout is from the Coordinating Gingerbread dies. So what I did is I mounted the sentiment on my clear block, or not clear block, on my clear plate, and I stamped it on a piece of scrap basic white cardstock. Then I lined up the ornament around the, oops, my magnet is pulling my die. I lined up the die around the sentiment that I stamped, and then I ran that through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And that took a little bit of time, I'm not gonna lie. Stamping, lining it up, and running it through. But a time-saving process using this tool is I went without thinking too hard. I went to my die cut machine and I cut out just a bunch of the ornaments on a piece of basic white cardstock. Didn't have to think about this, just placed the die and just cut and cut and cut. Didn't have to think too hard, didn't have to line anything up. I wasn't lining up on every single sentiment. So that's another time-saving tip. So that's how I created this template, and I did the same thing with the tailor-made tag. Because I showed you this stack of white, but I do have some that are already stamped. I already went through and stamped all of these, and that's what I'm showing you the process of right now. So I can go ahead with my stack of my ornaments here. I can take one of my blank ornaments, slide it in like a puzzle into where I did the original die cutting, and then I can stamp my sentiment. Now, I'm using Real Red ink. Real Red ink is a ink color that stains your stamps dramatically. Now my stamp is stained. Hopefully you can see this, that it is definitely stained red. But one way to try to minimize the staining is to ink your stamp up first in Versamark. And what this does is just a clear ink, so it just kind of coats the stamp, so it kind of gives a little bit of a layer of protection. Again, it won't stop it from staining, but it will minimize it. So I like to do that first, and then I'm going to take the Real Red ink and stamp down on my ornament. And there it is, exactly in the right spot. And I can just keep doing that with all of my blank ornaments. I just keep sliding them in, inking up my sentiment, and stamping down. exactly the same spot every time because it hasn't moved off of this plate. Let's go ahead and just do one more. Lovely. Every single time it'll come out in the exact same spot. So now, I actually had already done that ahead of time. I have a whole stack now of stamped ornaments ready to go to assemble. So let me put this Stamparatus aside now because I don't need that anymore for the moment. Let me close up my ink pad before I stick my fingers in it. That will not be good. So now I can go ahead and start grabbing my pieces. Like I said, I have all these stacks of things ready to go. So I'll grab a tag that has my to and from on it. I'll grab a piece of Designer Series paper that I've already pre-cut. I'll grab one of my stamped ornaments that I just finished stamping, and then I will grab a reinforcer and a string. Okay, and now we can kind of assemble. So what I did, okay, I listed. Before I ran the reinforcers through my cardstock, I added our adhesive sheets. So that way I can just peel off the backing of my reinforcer, and it has adhesive already on it that I can then use to attach to my tag. So I don't have to use liquid glue. Isn't that nice? Love that. Especially for small things like that. I think it's great. But I am going to use liquid glue to adhere these two pieces together. You don't need much. Liquid glue, a little bit goes a long way. But what I like about it is it helps me to have some wiggle room so I can line up these tags exactly where they need to be. So there's no overhang. So I can line them up. Make sure the holes are all lined up. Oops. I think that looks pretty good. Yep. So I have my tag. That is all ready to go, and now I can add my ornament, and I'm going to do that using a dimensional. You just need one. But before I can attach it to my tag, I need to pop a whole hole in it. So I have an old retired hole punch. You can use any hole punch that you have. You can get hole punches in office supply stores, but this is a nice size one. So I'm going to try to, sorry if I'm out of the camera. There we go. So I've got a hole in that. And I'm going to peel off the backing of my dimensional. I'm going to center this as best I can right there. And now I'm going to take my twine. I'm going to go through the hole of the ornament, then through the hole of the tag. And I'll pull this up like this, halfway. I'm going to tie a bow on the top. And I'll just keep adjusting my bow until it's the size that I want. I think that looks pretty good. And then I think, though, I want to cut the ends a little bit. I got my scissors. And there's my tag. And now that I have all these stacks of everything ready to go, I've got my stamped pieces, and I've got my reinforcers and my tags. I can just assemble and keep going, and that's how I can mass produce any project, not just tags, but I can mass produce any project using these tips. So I hope you found these helpful, and I hope that you are enjoying making your holiday projects, including your Christmas tags. They're always the last thing that I tend to make. I'm always kind of making them at the last minute, so I'm glad that I'm kind of ahead of the game this time. So thank you again so much for watching. I hope you learned something new, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.